All right, this is crash course lesson 4 for ProffieOS4. This will primarily focus on the new style editor that Fredrik put together, as well as my library and how to use the style editor to make edits to styles. But I'm also going to just kind of show the controls of the new editor, as well as at the end, I'll kind of share some tips and tricks that I've kind of picked up over the years doing this. For those of you who want to actually start branching out and designing your own styles. So I've said it a bunch of times in places, but even with the size of my library, it's still really only scratching the surface. And for those who maybe don't have a Proffieboard physically yet, and they're kind of looking and just interested or curious, or even if you're just a lightsaber fan and you want to see some of the potential, um, you can use the styles from my library with the style editor, and you can get a preview like what you see on screen without having a physical Proffieboard saber. But all these effects will only run on Proffieboard. But if you're doing some research, if you're trying to learn more about Proffieboard, see if it's see what all the discussions and hype is about. You can still jump into my library, use the editor, preview everything, play around with stuff, and you can actually, kind of jump in and start building some styles and get a feel for it with this tool. So the style editor, Fredrik's done a ton of work on it. There's a lot of changes from the old version. So I want to kind of start with the controls and go through that and how to use it. Get people into it, and then get a little more in depth in how to actually edit some of the stuff, the questions in particular I get the most often. So first and foremost, I have this up on the screen, but um, let's start with my style library, and we'll go to a more simple style. That one that was up on the screen, that's my new Rage Unstable. I just was using it to kind of fill the background while I rambled on to the intro. But within my style library, any of the styles you can choose, and you can do the customize enhance. And then from that screen, you'll actually be able to go right into the editor to preview what you've selected. And again, if you have a Proffieboard and you want the styles, it's very easy to take these and add them to your config file to have them. If you want to edit them first, you can do that. Or if you're just curious about Proffieboard and you want to take a look, you can use Editor for that preview capability. So this is a audio flicker style. This is what I typically use as Canon for most sabers, except for Kylo. So we can go in here and you can choose your default color. So almost all styles will have the 8 defaults, but you can change the color, which is one of the things we're going to cover today. And you can also make other changes to the styles themselves. But let's go. We had a red up. We'll go with a blue. So I'm going to choose the main blade. I have had a couple questions about that. So main blade. If you have a saber, your main blade is always going to be this. If you have a crossguard, the blades 2 and 3, which are your side blades, would be these. And then crystal chamber. So if you use this blades 2 and 3 code for your primary blade, it does have, it is lacking certain effects on purpose. If you're looking through these, if you have a single blade lightsaber, you only ever need this. If you have a dual blade lightsaber, probably you'd use this just twice. If you have a crossguard saber, you would use this for the main, and then this for blades 2 and 3 as your side blades, and then crystal chamber is what it is. But let's go choose the main blade. And then this enhanced screen is always changing. But you can choose from all the options in here, and this will just continue to grow as I add more stuff. For those of you who haven't seen the previous videos, I highly recommend you watch lessons 1 through 3, because I'm going to kind of breeze through a lot of what those already explain. But you can click the question marks, and I give kind of a brief description of what everything means. If you see this YouTube symbol, it means it has a video of some of the effects. Because these effects, I'm almost adding new effects daily. I can't do videos for every single one of them. I try to, but it's not realistic. But you can preview kind of what it's about. And then to close up this preview screen, just click in it. But let's choose a Preon effect. Let's go choose, so you've got a lot of ignition options. So let's stay with spark tip. We can change the time. So this is the timing for how long that ignition extension takes. I've got a power up effect, so you've got a bunch of them. We'll do a run up retraction. The time will leave. Let's do a cooldown. Post-off effects, we'll leave as that. Lockup effect, we'll leave all these. And I'm going to do a couple of these just to show how to edit stuff. I'm going to touch on the responsive swing stuff because that's new second, and then a bunch of this other stuff you can kind of just pick and choose. But once you've made all your selections, if you just want it as is, you would just click Get Style. It'll give you the code. You would just paste this code that it's now copied to your clipboard into your config file, and you go from there. But where the focus today is going to be on the new editor. So I'm going to click Check an Editor. Right now it says beta because it hasn't been moved to the live yet. It's pretty well tested out, but if you're in it and something acts weird, just let Fredrik know on the TRA forum. I've done a lot of pretty good beating up on it, but there's still probably combinations that might need to be checked. But at any rate, it says beta just because the editor itself is in beta, but everything is pretty solid now. So I'll click here. It's going to take me over to editor. So just for those of you who are used to the code, the library puts out the code as a single string. It's kind of a side effect of how I build styles in the library, but Fredrik actually fixes it for those of you who like line breaks and everything. The editor does it automatically, so it's another great feature of the editor. So if you want to take the styles and edit them, even edit them by hand, you can just quickly and easily do this. So you see here it comes in as a single string. All you got to do to break this into line breaks, just click layers up top here, and it will lay it all out, line breaks and all, for everybody who prefers that approach. That's automatic. So now, how you use the editor. And if you've used the previous editor, the controls are similar, but there's a lot more in this new one. Fredrik's done a ton of work, so big thanks to him. But a lot more going on because OS4 has so much more you can do. So primary controls of the editor. This is your preview screen. Right now, there's nothing going on. That's because this saber is off. So to turn your saber on, you click the power button. And that's my effect. Now, when I turned it on and when I turned it off, there's a power up and a cooldown effect. So that's going to be that white flashing we see. So you see the white, and that has a run up, and then there was a post off effect running. Maybe not the best combination, so I might want to go back and change my retraction, but at any rate. And then when I hit power, you'll see that extension with that white burst. That's the power up effect that I chose in the library. And then you see what's running here. Now I can see my clash. That's what the clash looks like. I can see what the stab looks like. I can see what blast looks like. I didn't choose a force, a boot, or a new font. Now for Preon, you can't have your blade on. And Preon is a unique effect. The Preon effects, the Preon wave, which is a sound file on your SD card, has to be present for Preon effects. The Preon effects will have timings in them, but the way the ProffieOS works is if you hit ignition and you have a Preon file, a Preon wave file, the Preon wave file will play in its entirety for the length of however long that sound file is, and then it will do the ignition. The timings on the Preon effect, the visual side, I default most of them to 8,000 milliseconds, give or take. It's based on the animation that's going on, but roughly 8,000 milliseconds. If you have a much shorter Preon wave file, you'll want to shorten the Preon effect, and I'm going to show you how to do that. If you have a much longer Preon sound file that lasts longer than 8,000 milliseconds and you wanted the animation and the effects to run longer, you would extend them. And each one's different. So certain Preon effects, if they were longer than your WAV file, you actually wouldn't notice it. They're running, but because of how they're designed, they would blend into the blade. They wouldn't be visible. Other ones would be very noticeable. So sometimes if you have like kind of a 4,000 millisecond WAV file for Preon, you have 8,000 millisecond Preon effect for the visual, it'll bleed over into the blade after it's ignited. Now, some people might like it, so you leave it alone, but if you want to shorten that, I'm going to cover on that in just a little bit. But at any rate, for Preon to preview, you want your blade to be off, let that post off run out, and then you just click the Preon. Now, it's only going to show you the timings on that effect. That what will actually happen on your blade is totally dependent on that Preon wave file. Now I've seen a couple posts about if you have a Preon wave that has a sound and then silence, the blade won't ignite until that wave file finishes, even if it's silent. It's just the actual length of time that the wave file is visible or playing. So if you have like a 2-second sound, and then you have like a 2-second or 3-second silence, and then the WAV file's done, you're going to get a blank in the sound effect. The Preon graphic visual will still go for as long as it's timed out to go, but then your ignition will help happen. But if you want it to be clean, you'd have to edit the actual audio file for Preon to cut out that silence. And there's open sources kind of covered it using Audacity. The sound stuff I leave to the other guys. Sound isn't my area of expertise. But at any rate, Preon Effects, the visuals they're tied to the sound file, but they're not dependent upon it because they have their own timing. So it's kind of, you'll want to adjust them. So I'll show that in a little bit, but you can test your preons with the blade off by clicking preon, but it's only going to show you the effect. It's not going to ignite for you because the way the OS works, the actual ignition is actually controlled by the WAV file, which isn't present in this editor. So we'll go here. So going through again, blades ignited. You can see your lockups. Now, with particularly with all the responsive stuff, the editor is going to move this stuff back and forth. So for blade angle, which is controlling the lockup, twist angle, which controls like melt and lightning block and a few other things, swing speed, which I don't have present on this blade, and then also battery level. Those four, pretty sure it's those four, they're going to, the way Fredrik set the editor up is they're going to move because the editor doesn't have the ability for you to tilt this saber to check the angles. So it's basically just doing it back and forth as like a sine curve just to give you a visual representation. So this is the visual representation of where this lockup is going to move, but in reality, the movement of your blade up or down is what will actually control that for responsive. If it's not a responsive effect, it doesn't matter. So there are certain effects that have animations in them that run independent of either blade angle, twist angle, swing speed, or the battery level. But for any that do require blade angle, twist angle, etc., the editor is going to just animate them for you, just to represent the full range of motion. So if you see this moving, that's for lockup. That's because this is what would happen as you move your blade around. And then drag, same thing. Drag actually has an extension and a shrink based on the turning of your hilt. So it's representing twist angle by extending and shrinking. Melt. The color will change based on turning, so you'll see it go heat up and then cool back down. That's actually, in reality, that's controlled by turning your hilt, but the editor is going to show it as kind of going in and out. So you can see the full range there. And then lightning block is kind of a crazy one, so it has a randomized animation built in, but there is actually a twist angle and a blade angle that all control it. So this one will look very different every time you use it, because as you angle your blade, it actually concentrates it. As you turn your hilt, it actually increases and decreases its intensity, and it has a random going on. But this gives you kind of a visual representation of that. And then when you end lockup, any end lockup effects that are built in will show on the blade. So those are your controls. Now let's talk about editing. So first and foremost, when it comes time, the biggest question I always get is color. So I have 8 colors in the library. I had to choose 8 just because I needed something that I could actually program in so that it was manageable. But you can change any of the colors very easily with the editor. So over on the right side is where all the controls for editing are done. So see how it says click to edit? You can pick any aspect. So this is in a layers format, and all my styles for OS4 layers. The base layer is here. So if I just click this audio flicker, that's the base layer. You see this box is highlighted. This is all that's visible right now is the base layer. Now in this case, that's not a big deal. But if I want to change this, I can change it. Now, I'm going to go off on a tangent again just for explanation of a few things. This rotate colors X variation, this combination is color change. It's the new color change color wheel variation for OS4. Basically, if you want to control color change with the color wheel, rotate colors X is what does it, and the command is variation, and that's what enables the new color wheel. So when you, what happens is you go into color change mode, and this color is going to change as you rotate it. By putting this in the style, you actually tell the style which colors to change. If you have no color change or no rotate colors X defined, the OS by default just has color change built in, but that color change does every color of the blade except for white and black. So what would happen is if you use the default color wheel, particularly with effects like melt and stab, and a couple others that have a very specific color defined, it's like melt. It's supposed to go from red to orange to yellow to represent the material heating up. If you use the default color wheel that's built into the OS, it would change those colors as well, which would then mean that your melt effect would look weird when you change the blade color. So with the introduction of OS4, rotate colors X gets put into the style only on the colors you want to change. And what that does is you can change specific colors only using the color wheel, and then all colors that are not included in the rotate colors X or don't have a rotate colors X around them will not change. So that's how all my styles are built. So you will always see rotate colors X, with the exception of the dual phase saber styles. Those use color change, which is a separate use function. That's you're defining actual changes to the blade. But almost any other style is going to use rotate colors X in certain spots. And that means that's what colors I want you to be able to change. Other colors remain unchanged no matter what you do. You can still edit them, but when you're using the saber, the color wheel will not adjust colors that don't have the rotate colors X on them. So when you see this rotate colors X, you don't have to worry about that unless you want to wipe it out. So say, like in this case, my base color, I have the rotate colors X on the A and B colors, which is what flickers. So audio flicker goes from this color to this color back and forth based on sound of the hum or swing. So if I wanted to keep the blue always, but then only rotate that second color, you can actually take rotate colors X out, and then you could just choose a color and it will wipe it out. And then when you do color change, only the second color would change. So you're not stuck with that function. But I'm going to put that back. Now you can put it back with the buttons as well, but I'm just going for time. And then anytime you make a change in this box, you have to hit submit. It'll put it back over here. If you click and change, it doesn't need to be. So that being said, so say I want to change the base color, but I still want to keep color change. You're going to click in the color. The list that appears here is all the defined colors, the named colors of the OS, but this is not all you need. If you click this little red box, this color will change, but if you choose this box here, it'll actually give you a color picker. So say I want to tweak that color, you can, let's get into a blue family, but let's go with a different blue. Say I want a brighter blue. You can choose that. And then again, we'll click back over here to view it. And now that's my new color. So I changed the first color. Now RGB 16 just is more fine-tuned colors. All my styles will always run just RGB, just for simplicity. This runs the same, and this gets translated, so you don't need to worry. But when you use the color picker, it's going to drop RGB 16 in. So if you're looking at these numbers and like, oh no, don't worry about it. That's how the editor deals with it, and the OS handles it just fine. So I've now changed that color. So say the second color is a little bit, that's the second color. Say I wanted to change that one. Go into the picker again. It's going to remember where I left off, but let's darken it. Because usually for audio flicker, I'd run a darker version and a lighter version. And then again, we'll go back. Oops. I'll put decimals in. Let's go back up to here. Doesn't like the decimal. I'm going to have to, that looks like a bug that I will have to let Fredrik know about. I didn't run into that one before. Let's fix it this way. So bugs happen. That's why it's in beta there. We'll leave it like that for now. So I'll make a note to report that. So if something like that happens, you can go back and change it. There's also a history that'll let you jump backwards in time. So the latest thing is always going to be up top. So you can click each one of these stages. This is brand new that Fredrik put in. I haven't played with it yet. but this is what it's meant to be. So if you make a mistake, you can actually jump back in time and see what you did, which is really cool. But I actually haven't played with that. Part of me still does stuff the old-fashioned way from the previous editors. So he's added so much functionality. I have to retrain myself a tad. But okay, so now we're back here. So I've got my base color changed. And you can change anything. If I don't like this audio flicker, say I've decided, you know what, I like that. If I don't want an audio flicker, I want to go with, say, brown noise flicker. So anywhere you click is what you're editing. So this is highlighted. This would change everything. I want to change just my base layer. I click here, and then I can actually go and I can choose a brown noise flicker, and it will replace that whole audio flicker with new brown noise flicker. And then say I don't like green, I want to go back into, let's do a steel blue. And then my second color, let's do a deep sky blue maybe. Now let's see what that looks like. They're a little closely related, but that's the rough thing. So now that's my new base style. And then again, that's what that would look like. And then with, actually, I'll circle back to that. I was going down another tangent. So now the second thing I was talking about is the Preon stuff. So Preons and post-offs, because I think I'd get at least one question a day about those, which is great that everybody is enjoying them. But let's hope everybody watches this video, because then everybody can kind of handle these. But Preons, post-offs, so anything, and then any other style you want to have when the blade's not ignited, they're going to be the last layers. So in the layers video, the first of the crash courses covers this a little bit more. But so I'm going to scroll down. Now, what you're looking for is effect type. So effect Preon is here. You got to get this control out of my way. So effect Preon is here. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to backtrack up and find the transition effect that is controlling it. So that's layer 13. So if I highlight here, this is now the Preon effect. So Preon effect, post-off effects, what else? Power-ups, cooldowns, emitter effects. Almost all of them are going to be transition effect L is what does it. And then to figure out what it's doing, it's the last variable in it. So this is the Preon effect. So of course right now, nothing's happening because all transition effects require an effect to get triggered. So that's why they're used so often, because they do everything except for your base style. And they enable a whole lot of customization, which is why I use them so much, because it lets you really get crazy with animations and effects and doing stuff temporarily on the blade or having other stuff applied. So I want to edit a Preon effect. I got to find it. Right now it's layer 13. I go here. I can preview it again, clicking the Preon. And if you watch, you'll see highlights of yellow boxes, and they go quick, but it's showing you the steps as it's running. So when it highlights in yellow, so now that I pointed out, hopefully you can pay attention to it. When you hit the Preon button, this box is going to get a yellow outline. And then each step, so transitions are what control timings. So there's a 2000 millisecond TR fade that starts it all off. So you'll see a yellow box initially around this. It'll slide to this one really for like a second, which is a color, and then it'll switch to the next transition. So unfortunately it doesn't, let's see if I can get that positioned where it both show on screen. So you'll see yellow box around the whole thing, yellow box around here, yellow box around here. That's showing you a coordination between what you see on screen and what's actually doing it, which is another cool thing that Fredrik just added. But let's pay attention to it. So I'll click Preon. There's my boxes. Moved from the first fade to the second fade. And then it moved to the third fade. And then it ends with the boing, and that's a very quick one. All right, so your timing. So going back to Preons, I might be reiterating what I said earlier, but the Preon effect actually is controlled by the length of the wave file. The timings for the animation, though, play a part. So depending on the Preon effect you choose, there could be one transition. This one has 4 transitions. I think like the Infinity Stone or Infinity Gauntlet one has like 6 transitions. The transitions themselves are what time everything out. If I want to change this, so again, most of the Preon effects, if I didn't say it earlier, for the library, except for like 1 or 2 of them, they're all defaulted to 8,000 milliseconds, which is, might be too long if you have a very short Preon file. So if you want to adjust them, you're really just looking for the transitions, and they start with TR. So this is the first transition that happens. It's TR 2000. When I click on this, you'll see this is a preview that is defaulted in, so it's always going to be red, blue, and it's just showing you that fade and the time. And you'll see it highlighted in yellow. This is that first step only. So changing this time is only changing the time of the first step. There's 4 transitions in this one that I chose. If I wanted to shorten or lengthen this entire Preon effect, I technically would adjust them all. So this one has a 2000 millisecond plus a 2950 milliseconds, so that's 4950, plus a 3000 millisecond, so that's 7950, and then this one has another 1000, so that's actually 8950 on this particular effect is the total time. So that's how long it's going to run for. Right? I think I added wrong. No, 8950. Doing it in my head. And I'm thinking of a billion things. So if I want to adjust this down, you would just do the math, which my head not doing right now, but you would adjust these times cumulatively. So if I wanted to cut it in half, I'll change this time. So click on it. Now for numbers, you got to make the edits over here on the left. Everything else you can just click and it'll swap. But for numbers, you're going to change them here. So let's cut this one in half. And then you have to, so it didn't change here yet until I hit submit. That's the big thing I see people make mistakes with, and I've done it myself. Hit submit. Now it's here. So that first one, I just cut that one in half. My next transition is here. So it's 2950. So we'll say, let's just go to 1500. Submit. That's changed. And here, this one's a 3000. I'll change this one. Submit. And then the last one, we'll cut this one down to 500. Submit. And then if you want to preview what these look like, again, if you click here, it's going to do a red and blue version of it. That's not what your style is. That's just the built-in previewer of what the TR blowing looks like. So it's 3 bounces of 2 alternating colors. So that's what that roughly looks like. And it's showing you the timing you've put in. So that's how quick it'll be. But now I've got that all done. I can go back up. And to preview any box, you click in the upper level of it. So that's now my transition effect. So now I can check how quick that Preon's going to go. Now I've cut the time in half, so it's going to only be visible for half the time. So that's what that would look like. So, and some of them I know are very complex, but it's really just going in, keeping track of the timings and testing them. Or if you have your WAV file handy, you can preview it and test alongside. But for Preons, if you need to shorten or lengthen the time, it's really just looking for these transitions and changing the times out. And again, they work together. So it's step 1. So again, well, just to hammer home a point, you'll see it highlight in yellow when it's doing this fade. It's going to be very quick. It's going to do this fade very quick, and so on and so forth. So it's past that first fade, it's on that second fade. Second fade's gone. It's on the third, and then it's on the fourth, and that's it, because that's very quick Preon. So that's how you adjust the Preons. And then the post-offs are the same thing. So post-off, there's not actually an effect post-off. Effect post-off actually just happens when you do a retraction. So effect retraction is the post-off. Effect retraction is also the cooldown effect. So the effect retraction can be in 2 places, depending on what you choose in the options. But all it means is, so all the effects, they're just what triggers them. That's essentially what it translates to. So this post-off effect is triggered when you retract the blade. The cooldown effect is also triggered when you cool down the blade. The effect Preon effect is triggered with the Preon file. The effect ignition is triggered when you click ignite or on. And then blast and clash, lock up end, it's literally right in front of me. All of these, some of these are gun. So stun, fire, clip in, clip out, reload, mode, range, empty, full, jam, unjam, PLI, PLI. Those are blaster, so that's for a totally different prop. So those are the only ones that you can't really mess with. But everything else here, these are effects that will trigger what you're seeing. So post off, cooldown, if you're looking for them, they're going to be transition effects related to retraction. And then again, you can edit any of this. And then the in-out layers. I talked about this again in the first video. In-out TRL, that's what turns your blade on and off. So, and how you do it. This one, you can preview it here. So it's not really able to show anything because there's no colors assigned, but you can control your timings here. And then all these are the responsive stuff. So each layer you'll see is defined in here. If you wanted to change any of it, you would just click into it. All right. So that's the basics of the editor. So now I want to go a little more in depth with a different style. So I'll leave this open, but I'm going to go choose a different style. Let's actually, we'll do two things. I'm going to try to do two things in one just to shorten this video. So in the library, there's this fully responsive, static, single color blade styles. It's a little bit buried. It's in the standard stable Saber styles. These are the simplest styles. So if you want to go and play, if you want to start learning to build the base effects, but you also want all the cool additions that the library offers, this is the style to choose because it's the most simple base style. It's just a color, and that lets you easily play with designing some really unique stuff. Now, if you want to go from scratch, the editor will do it too, but with so much now possible, there's really the library is essentially the repository for every crazy thought I've had in my head or that I've gotten suggestions or ideas from. I can't possibly regurgitate them all to everybody, and documenting would take years. So as I design stuff, I drop it in the library, particularly now enhancements, which is why that enhancement screen grows so quickly. But if you want to get a full built style in terms of having all the other effects, but you really want to fine tune that base style, choose the static single color. And we'll just go red and choose everything you want here. You don't have to, but I just think it's easier. So let's choose a different, we'll do sparking. Do that. So you just choose all that you want. Now I'm going to put, this is what I wanted to show, responsive swing. Let's choose, I'm going to choose white just because it shows for purposes, for viewing purposes, always on. We'll leave it always on for now. And then, again, all the descriptions, if you click here, if you haven't seen the video on this, full blade means the full blade's affected with responsive swing. Cutting edge means the upper half of the blade. Responsive edge means it's actually responding in size and brightness to how fast you're swinging. But let's keep it simple for now. We'll do full blade, and I'll leave everything else off, and we'll go to check in editor. So now what's going to happen? The editor, I said earlier, the editor does this kind of cycling in and out for blade angle, twist angle, swing speed, and battery level. So swing speed is what's controlling that white effect. So the blade is going to keep going in and out from red to white because that's just built in for previews. That's not what it'll look like. The white actually only comes into play when you're swinging your blade real. But in order to be able to show it in editor, this is how it gets shown. So when you have a swing speed, particularly swing speed applied always on, that's what you're going to get. So it's on purpose, and it's just showing you the max. So you can still edit everything, but that's what's happening there. Now, in the library, if you choose force boost as your swing, and we go into the editor, nothing else changed. That won't happen because swing speed is actually now a force effect. So now it doesn't do that. And if you don't want force boost, don't do this. But if you wanted force boost, now when I click force, I'm going to get that. Now, the force boost lasts for 30 seconds. Again, that's a timing you control. Actually, it's right here on screen. This is the timing for force boost. It's 30,000 milliseconds, so it's 30 seconds is how long it's visible. It's on a delay. All that means is when I do the force effect, it's going to activate this alpha layer, which I'll touch on a little bit. Alpha layers are going to be a whole other conversation, but I'll touch on them. And swing speed. So that means your swing speed of 400 is what triggers it. But when I'm previewing it, so I deactivated the force boost by going in there. If I click force again, so now it's going to last for, you'll see the yellow here, it's on that 30-second time. So after 30 seconds or 30,000 milliseconds, that pulsing will go away. Again, that's not actually, the blade won't actually pulse. As you swing the blade, it gets whiter. So this is just the visual representation of what's going to happen for you. And that 30 seconds should be coming to an end. And then that'll go away. Done. Okay, so now, I know I went off on another tangent. That seems to be how I do things. So now, say I want to play and design my own blade style. And this is for anybody who's really building or anybody who wants to just go crazy because, you can. What's going to happen? I'm going to show you how I do it. So I'm going to take the rotate colors X out right now. So rotate colors X can only apply to a color, but colors can become effects, and I'm going to show that. So first and foremost, if I want to make my own unique blade or just play with it, choosing this style, I'm going to wipe out the rotate colors X for now. I'm going to go to colors. Let's just go blue. All right, so now my base layer is just blue. So now let's take that blue. Let's actually go add a style to it, and all these buttons here you can use. Let's start with, what's a good one? Let's go with a pulse. So pulsing, it's a little quick. So let's change the timing on that. Hit submit. Again, anytime you do numbers, you do them over here, hit submit. Let's see what that looks like. All right, I don't want a red and blue pulse. So anywhere, and this is for all of the editor, ProffieOS, whatever, anywhere there's a color, you can add a style. And that the nesting wrapping still works with layers, but it's really reserved for the base layer. So you can wrap and nest in the base layer and then layer on top of it, which is what a lot of my really complex styles do. And all that means is that instead of having just pulsing blue and red, let's put, instead of blue, let's choose a style. Let's choose, and I almost feel like Bob Ross saying, let's paint a little tree here. You can do this to your heart's content, but let's put a brown noise flicker in. Now, again, it loads a default. Let's go, let's see what an orange, dark orange, and let's go yellow. All right, and then let's go back. So that's a pulse between a brown noise flicker and dark orange and yellow and red. Interesting. Let's take this a little deeper. Let's take the red out and put a style in its place. And I'm just grabbing stuff. It's not, this isn't thought out ahead of time, so this might turn out to be really funky looking. Let's go to, let's play with the gradient. In the gradient, let's play, again, I can take any color. Let's grab a hump flicker. And inside the hump flicker, let's turn it blue and cyan. All right, and where were we? And then for the second color of the gradient, let's do, it's another good one. We'll do a strobe. And let's make the strobe, usually strobe you like to have black in place just because it really gives that effect, but let's make it a strobe of deep sky blue. So I'm doing little pieces here, so I don't know what the end result's going to be, but you can just you can go down this rabbit hole really deep and come up with some really cool stuff. Let's see what this is going to look like. So it's doing all of that now, and this is now my base layer is a pulsing brown noise flicker mixed with a gradient of a hump flicker and a strobe. And the gradient means that the top half of the blade and the bottom half of the blade are doing different things. So when I come up with really a lot of my complex styles, I kind of think them out ahead in terms of what I want them to look like. Um, but you can also just come in here and just mix stuff together and be like, you know what, that's not at all what I want. And you can also go backwards and just take it out. So highlighting that pulsing effect, let's say I don't love that. I want to go back to an audio flicker. And I don't want blue, I want steel blue. And then go back, and that's my base. And then again, you can start over and say, all right, instead of a steel blue, let's go with a regular blue. And then the second color we'll go with let's go choose an RGB. Now, if I get a decimal, that is what we ran into earlier. I have to, just like here, if you see this, there's a bug this very second. I'm going to report it. Hopefully it gets fixed. But let's not pick a color that has a bug in it. So that looks good. So I'll go back up, and that's what that looks like. All right, and you can just play and do whatever you like with designing styles and stuff, and just get used to what they all do, how they work together. So every time you put something inside of something else, which is nesting, it's going to give you a different look. So sometimes, and the order matters. So if you have, so in this case, I have an audio flicker here. If I put a brown noise flicker inside of that, and let's get it into a similar color family. Actually, we'll put white in so it stands up more. So that's what that looks like. Now, if I reverse it and do the brown noise, so right now it's a brown noise flicker inside of an audio flicker, that's what that looks like. If I actually did a brown noise flicker, and I'm going off of memory for the colors I had chosen, I think I chose that, and white. That's what it looks like. And then let's put the audio flicker in here. Let's put that audio flicker as, I think it was steel blue. We'll leave it as blue. So it's a different look. Of course, memory has to work for it, but layering stuff or nesting stuff inside of it still works exactly as it did the previous way. But when you nest stuff now, what you're really just nesting is for your base layer. Everything else is going to be done as these additional layers. And it's again, it opens up a lot of freedom with the style, but it's actually more efficient when it comes to actually getting those styles on your board too. So you still want to use that layers setup. But that is now the blade I've designed. And when you're ready to get this to, if you're ready to go and this is exactly what you want and you fixed everything else and played and you want to get this in your config, you just hit copy and it will copy everything, and then it's in your, it's going to be inside your clipboard, and you paste it inside your config. All right. And then lastly, I want to touch on just one other little trick. I know this has actually run on for a while. Hopefully I haven't lost the whole audience. So let's go back. So I've got all this. So say again, going through, I made all my changes, or I've made all my selections here. This is that static base color that I chose. Let's check this one in editor again. You can have as many of these open as you want, right? So if you have a base style from OS 3.9 or sooner that you want to move over to the, actually move it into editor in the layers format, here's a little trick. So you want to wipe out all the effects. You want to wipe out in-out helper. You want to wipe out blast and clash and lockup and all those. You only want to stick with the base blade effect for layers. You don't want to, really don't want to stick lockup and blast and all that inside that base layer. It's going to take up a lot of extra memory, and it also limits what you're going to be able to do layer-wise. So those I would strip out. But say you have just this other unique style that you designed last year or 6 months ago and you love it and you're not sure how to move it over, but you still want all the other effects from the library. Again, that static base color is the easy part. So I can go highlight here, and you would just paste your base style in this place. And that allows you to drop it in and keep all the other layers. So I'm just going to do by memory. So say I just had an audio flicker red with a flicker on the other side of it with don't know what this is going to look like. I'm totally making it up. And then I need and so say you pasted yours, I typed mine. You hit submit, and it'll drop it in there. And now, so that old style you had, again, base style that you loved, you can bring in and have it in the layers format. And again, it goes off because there's no power, so hit power. And then you can edit everything else. So you can take your existing styles. Again, stick with the base styles. You need to clean out those blasts and clashes, lockup, in-out helper, style PTR, obviously, and any of the other residual stuff, and just strip it down to the base layer. But you can just drop it in using that static single color style and get everything else added, and then tweak from there. So particularly because there's just so much now that, versus trying to rebuild it all, this is just an easy shortcut. So hopefully it helps a few of you. But I think I almost forgot. There's one more piece I wanted to cover. So hopefully you didn't sign off. So Brian actually posted something, and I wanted to expand on it. And I'm going to put this in the post on the open source group and wherever I put this video. So, and I'm going to show this real quick. The int value in OS4, in ProffieOS anyway, but in OS4 in particular, is everywhere. It actually has a lot of uses. Basically, it's almost always, we're going to actually run into some situations when I start talking about the more advanced functions where it's different. But for all intents and purposes, this diagram is kind of an expansion on what Brian put together to kind of cover more bases. So 0, lowest value in int. Mostly, it translates to a lot of different things. Highest value for now, 32,768, meant to be the highest value. And then obviously the middle point between them is 16,384. You will see values within the int everywhere. And I'm going to show them real quick and kind of touch on the shapes video. Lesson 3 covers this a lot. The blade angle, twist angle, less important right now. Those are more advanced functions. And mix and alpha, I believe I'm going to do that as my next video when I get a chance. But I wanted to put this out to everybody. So what int 0 translates to is it translates in the shapes, which is bump and smooth step, and then also there's shapes built into certain effects, and that kind of goes off on a whole other tangent. But 0 means the hilt for the positioning. It also means size. So size 0 obviously is no pixels. 32,768 for shapes is the tip. It also means full blade. It's the full value. All right, so for shapes, which the previous video covered, this is what that actually represents visually. Now for mixer alpha L, you'll see these, and I'll point them out quickly, but I'm going to have to go in depth on a totally separate video because this will be another rabbit hole. Int 0 means 0%. Int 32,768 means 100%. And then a couple videos from now, and we'll bring this back up, when you're talking twist angle, int 0 means 0 degrees. 0 degrees is your USB pointing straight up on the board. So, and there's going to be offsets and stuff. That's why it's like a rabbit hole for that on itself. But twist angle 0 means your USB port, USB is facing up. And then 180 degrees, which means you now have your USB facing down, is equal to 32,768. And then lastly, blade angle. So that is your hilt pointing straight up, straight down is 0, and your hilt pointing straight up is 32,768. So you're going to see these ints with numbers between 0 and 32,768 all over the place. They actually mean different things for different uses, but it's universal in what their value actually is. 0 is always 0 or 0%. 32,768 is max or 100%, and then again, twist angle, blade angle is these pointing up values. So if you want to understand them, I'm going to put this picture up. So Brian did put one up, but it was only related to one specific use. The int values are actually used all over the place, so this is kind of a more explanation on it. There's actually other uses that are even further advanced that are probably a couple videos away because I have to work up to that. But so this will be there. So that's what that means. So let's go real quick and show you the shape stuff. The video before covers this more in depth, but I just want to show you. So let's go find, click back over here. So I have a Preon on here. That's again where a lot of this comes up. So shapes in, let's start at the top. The shape, so let's grab the alpha L. So alpha L is using a shape. The alpha L can use a lot of things. All right, so let's actually, so this is the color that's in. Let's take a look at the shape. So this is the shape, and the white isn't actually what's set. It's just a preview. This is what's set. So if you want to control the size of that Preon in particular, which is the most common thing, again, watch lesson 3 because it touches on this better, but this is it in the editor. What I'm looking for, this one has a little bit of an extra level to it, but it's the same thing. So a scale is a little bit more explanation is going to be needed, but a scale is a control, is basically a limiter. So it limits what the output's going to be. But what we're looking for is these values, 1,000 and 4,000. So the smooth step. So if you watch here, this is growing and shrinking. It's growing and shrinking between the lower and the upper value. We will cover scale and slow noise and all that stuff with the advanced function stuff. You're looking for the ints, so the int, the integers. If I want to change how big this is, these are the numbers I'm going to change. So I'm going to come here, the lower. Let's say I want to make that bigger, particularly if you have like a deep well in your emitter. We'll pump this one up. And then we'll want to also pump this one up. And I'm just picking some random numbers, submit it. And then let's take a look at that. So that makes it larger. So obviously I went a little too big unless you have a really deep well, but that's how you control them. So the ints, so going back to this, the shapes, int, and shapes are smooth step and bump, and then also a lot of other uses within specific styles that, let's not worry about that right now. All right, so if I want to change the size of something that uses a shape, smooth step or bump, the ints are what I'm doing. And so that's going to be showing me the location that it will run. And then the smooth step, if you haven't watched lesson 3, watch lesson 3. This is the space it covers. This is also an int. Now, smooth step, again, previous video covers this better. Negative value just means it flips it. So if I change this the other way, if I take this negative off, you're going to see what happens. It actually flips the effect. So a negative moves it to the emitter side, a positive moves it to the tip side, and that's just a function of smooth step. So if you see a negative integer, if you take the negative away, you're going to flip the effect. And again, that'll have to be a lot more in-depth discussion in a future video. So don't take the negative away, but if I want to change how much area it covers, change that value. And what that does, so the second value in smooth step, again, previous video, covers how long that faded area is. So if I really want to fade this thing out, I can bump this up even higher. And then you'll see that fade takes longer. So the upper and lower limit are the position that it starts at, but then the fade will begin from that point on. And again, negative goes this way, positive goes that way. But so the shapes, what you're worried about for sizes of stuff is ints primarily. These other scales and stuff, that's a lot more complex, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to an int. These other things are doing stuff with those values. These are what you're looking for to change. And just for a visual, the size of them. So if you did 32,768 as any of those, it would be full blade. And then positionally, it would be 32,768 would be here, 1638 would be here. So there's smooth step and bump both have a position and a size. So they actually, while there's two numbers, their values are the same. So this chart gives it to you. So 0 would be no size, meaning it would be here, and positionally it would be here. 32,768 size-wise would be full blade, positionally would be tip. So hopefully this helps for those of you who need visual cues, but you're always going to see int, some number value, and then that's what you're going to edit for shapes. And then, like I said, mixed and alpha, we'll get a little more in depth with them in the next video, and then these guys we'll get to eventually. So I think that's enough for today. Hopefully I didn't melt any brains. If it goes, if some of my descriptions and stuff confuse you, I apologize. I have a lot in my head that tries to get out all at once, but the tool itself is really easy. So you don't even need me talking in your ear. Go in and play with the tool. Once you learn the basic controls of how to control all of this stuff and select it and make changes to it, this is how I learned forever ago. This is what actually got me into the styling that now pretty much it's probably the most fun for me in Proffie is actually coming up with new styles. It started with the original editor, so this is the most fun part of Proffie. Obviously, having the sabers and stuff is great, but just thinking about what they can do for me personally is the most fun. So that's why I spend time on this. So hopefully now some more people can get in here, have some fun like that, come up with unique, crazy stuff. And I think as more people get used to this editor, get used to playing with stuff, again, tip of the iceberg. The library itself is just the tip of the iceberg. So go in and have fun, and hopefully you all enjoy.